Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and Lando's cons come back to haunt him in this episode. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. The issue of the Marvel series we're looking at this time is number 85, entitled The Hero. The wrong place for hunted heroes is Hunter's World, but it's not called Hunter's World, it is called The Hero. The good news is that Jo Duffy, Mary Jo Duffy, is back as the writer, but we have new art by Bob McLeod doing the breakdowns and Tom Palmer doing the finishes, essentially the inking duties for the most part here. Now, where can you find The Hero these days? It is the last story, finally, right, in Star Wars Omnibus a long time ago, Volume 4. This leaves only one more volume in this Omnibus series to cover issues 86 up through 107. Now at this point, the Rebel Alliance has been sending out missions to try to meet with other leaders on various planets to get them involved in the Alliance so that perhaps, just maybe, they'll be willing to work with the Alliance in setting up a new representative government for the galaxy to replace the Empire. Now Luke is already off on one of these missions. We saw him and Pliff in diplomacy. We'll see them again very soon in Still Active after all these years. Leia is also on one of these missions, though we haven't seen her mission yet. We'll see that in an issue entitled Figurehead. I will say that given the fact that diplomacy seemed to be taking place at the same time as Jawas of Doom, it seems very likely that Luke is actually in the Still Active after all these years storyline right now during this issue, during The Hero, or maybe he's on his way from the one story to the other in terms of locations, Iskalon to his next landing point. What we have here this time is another diplomatic mission, only this time given a twist in that it's Lando and Chewbacca and Han Solo that go on the mission, and it's only after hearing that the Rebel Alliance has proclaimed a new hero who needs to be given a commendation, who needs to be declared a hero to the galaxy, a man by the name of Drebel. Wait, where have I heard that name before? Yes, a character later given the full name of Barpotamus Drebel was a character we met back on Stennax in Return to Stennos and then in Fool's Bounty. However, later on in Title, R2-D2 to the Rescue, and most notably in The Big Con, Lando used Drebel as an alias. Remember, he had the eye patch and the white hair and all that kind of stuff going on here. And some of the actions that Lando carried out were heroic actions on behalf of the Rebel Alliance, but they didn't realize that was Lando. Instead, they're giving credit to Drebel. And since there is no real Drebel of the version that was concocted by Lando, then it's the Drebel we met on Stennos who is the one who is supposed to be awarded. I think I said Stennax a second ago. The planet is Stennos. The people are Stenaxes, or the Stennax is the adjective. I always tend to get that thing confused. So, we pick up with what in the world ever happened to Drebel. It's actually the first thing we pick up on even before we realize he's about to be declared a hero. And sure enough, IG-88 there in the background on the right, and Bosk, still not looking like Bosk, as we saw previously, also still working with Drebel. And Drebel wants revenge on Lando Calrissian, no matter what it takes, and so forth. Only for them to wind up on a diplomatic mission to the planet Kioran, or starting with the planet Kioran, which happens to be where Drebel is. I should also note that part of taking this Kioran run is the fact that we get them close enough to Kashyyyk that Chewie would finally be able to visit with his family now that the war is over. We're going to see more about that in the upcoming issue, Wookiee World. So they wind up there on the planet, running afoul of Drebel, whose bar they walk into to sit down and have a drink at Han's urging, not Lando's, so at least it wasn't quite as bad as it could have been of Lando walking into his arch-nemesis's bar. But they wind up in a situation where there's a chase going on. Drebel is sending goons after them, only to wind up, oh yeah! Thanks to the Big Con, we also have people coming after them from Limo and Sanda's gang from Arcan 4. Now, we see them, we spot them just there, just a little bit, those two kind of like skinhead-looking guys there. But, I mean, people are going after him left and right, trying to get Lando, and Han's like, really? You got us into this? Really? What else were you doing while I was in Carbonite trying to so-called help me? Because he's revealing the whole thing about, well, we kind of said that, you know, you were great at finding artifacts, so you were the one we should go after to try to find the minstrel and the dancing goddess, right? So Limo and Sanda's gang, they're actually more after Han than they are after Lando, though they, you know, they do have a beef with Drebel, but it's not this Drebel, it's the Lando Drebel, of course. So, I mean, huge, you know, issue of all these different groups kind of coming at each other. Eventually, though, remember, Lando had the minstrel and the dancing goddess, he revealed. He gave the minstrel to them. Sure enough, Limo and Sanda, that is, sure enough, by the time we reach the end of the story, they have tried to torture Han for information, but in the final confrontation between all these different sides, we wind up finding Drebel taking the role of the hero. You know, even whenever they're trying to talk to Lando, it turns out they're talking to Drebel because they say the name Drebel and Drebel thinks it's him. It's all confusing, only to finally wind up with Lando giving him his supposed commendation, supposed to just calling him a hero. Yeah, here's a gift, a commendation for you, Drebel. And he gives him the dancing goddess, which is exactly what Limo and Sanda want. So now, of course, presumably there's going to be some conflict between those two groups once Lando and Han and Chewbacca get the heck out of there. You might think this is just sort of a throwaway story because of the whole dancing goddess minstrel thing and Drebel, just kind of fun stuff to wrap up some of the run at the time, but we will wind up seeing these come into play more in Touch of the Goddess, a story in issue number 99 of this series. So there is some connectivity here, even though at the time reading this, you would never have thought there would have been. I mean, upon seeing the dancing goddess there, most people are saying, whoa, I never expected that to come back after the whole minstrel thing, after the big con. Wow, man, it's continuity, man. Didn't come to expect that in some respects. And now we see pre-Return of the Jedi continuity affecting post-Return of the Jedi continuity quite a bit. That is a good thing, linking things together between the different eras, both between, before, and after the films. But this does beg the question, is this comic, right, the hero, an essential read? I think it's a fairly good read if you like chase and bumbling kind of Keystone Cops type of stories. I don't think it's necessarily essential for the broader modern EU reader, but for a Marvel reader, again, dealing with Drebel, the whole goddesses thing, because it is eventually going to wind up paying off, I think this probably is an essential read, or at least it's something that is a good read to add into your reading queue as you're going through and reading some of the Marvel series. If you're reading the entire thing, then of course my recommendation of whether or not you should read it really means nothing. So suffice to say, it's an okay read. It's good to see Mary Jo Duffy back again writing after the two oddball issues we got with Sweetheart Contract and Soul Searching. Now let's see the stories move forward from here. Why don't we, huh? Yeah, Marvel series really needs to get back on track, and this seems to be the first step in doing so. Back to those building the Alliance storylines. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.